One climate crisis disaster happening every week, UN warns. Climate crisis disasters are happening at the rate of one a week, though most draw little international attention, and work is urgently needed to prepare developing countries for the profound impacts, the UN has warned. Catastrophes such as cyclones and in Mozambique and the make headlines around the world. But large numbers of this means that adapting to the climate crisis could no longer be seen as a long-term problem, but one that needed investment now, she said. People need to talk. Estimates put the cost of climate-related disasters at $520 billion a year, while the additional cost of building infrastructure that is resistant to the effects of global heating is only about 3%, or $270 billion in total over the next 20 years. Mizutori said this is not a lot of money in the context of infrastructure spending, but investors have not been doing enough. Resilience needs. Until now, most of the focus of work on the climate crisis has been on mitigation, jargon for cutting greenhouse gas emissions, and not to be confused with mitigating the effects of the climate crisis. The question of to it, Mizutori said the time for such arguments had ran out. We talk about many of the lower impact disasters would be preventable if people had early warnings of severe weather, better infrastructure such as flood defenses or access to water in case of drought, and governments had more awareness of which areas were most vulnerable. Nor is this a problem confined to the developing world, she said, as the recent forest fires in the US had shown. Rich countries also nature-based solutions, such as forests and wetlands which could form natural barriers to flooding, should be a priority, said Mizutori. A further key regulations on building standards must also be updated for the climate crisis and properly enforced, she said. One of the governance we need to take a more holistic view of the risks, she said. Search for location/city.
Raindrop, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park,